Hello, my name is Stephen Smith and I am the UNESCO Chair in Genocide Education at the Shoah Foundation at the University of Southern California. This day marks the 27th anniversary of the start of the genocide in Rwanda in 1994. Today we come together to remember the 1 million Tutsis who were systematically and brutally murdered over the course of 100 days, alongside moderate Hutus and others who were also targeted by the Hutu extremists. Ladies and gentlemen, this event examines the role of hate speech in inciting the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda. While extremists spread inflammatory language on the radio and in the media as a call to violence, the international community ignored these early warning signs of atrocity crimes.
Freddie is a survivor of the genocide. Can you take us back to your childhood, to being at school, to listen to propaganda on the radio, to listening to others around you? Can you share with us, can you draw a picture of how was it for you to grow up as a child in Rwanda?
Well, thank you very much, Tali, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you, but also be part of these important programs as we're preparing for 27th commemoration of genocide against Tutsi. Yeah, as you mentioned, Tali, I grew up in a country which the Tutsi were hugely discriminated. Tutsi in this country were deprived with human basic right, including the access to jobs and access to school. I remember when I started my primary school, I was of course ignorant as a child, and seeing the teachers, how they humiliating their students. The students, as Tutsis, we are very minority at school, and we've been asked to stand up and used as a teaching materials to count. But the comment that teachers used to make against us, against the Tutsi children, that was horrible, because they would say those guys standing, they are cockroaches, they are snakes, and this was done actually in front of the other children. And this was a huge humiliation. And I think I remember that I used to give a hard time to my mother because she was a teacher at the same school. And I was asking her why she chose to be a Tutsi, because I can see the Tutsi as bad people. I believe that because I was very young at that time. So this continue actually in my country, hearing on radio, the hate speech that was delivered from radio, from newspapers, talking about how they will eliminate Tutsis in the country, how the Tutsis are enemies of the country, and it should be eliminated. This was actually, we lived in a country with a fear, and all adults, they have experienced horrible experience of discrimination, and also the many parents actually were afraid how and the future of their children until the 1994 genocide. You remember the hate speech that was delivered on radios. So the famous one is Leo Mugesera, who were saying that the Tutsis should be taken back where they came from, because the Tutsi were not considered as the Rwandans. They should be taking a shortcut to Ethiopia. And then the shortcut that he was mentioning is to throw their bodies into Nyabarongo River, which connect to Nile River, crossing actually to Ethiopia. And from that hate speech, many Tutsis actually were killed and thrown into river. And the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, the river itself was full of blood, was full of bodies, until going to the side of Uganda, and the Lake Victoria was full of bodies, and including also the starting point of Nile River. So yeah. This is actually was a horrible time that we lived in before 1994 genocide.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing with us, because I can imagine you as a small child surrounded by all this propaganda, by all this hate speech. And when April 1994 happened, the words, the hateful words became action. And you shared with us already how this action, genocidal action of mass murder, using the water, using the river, using the dams, using the lakes happened. But perhaps, Freddie, you can share with us what happened to you, and maybe, if you may, share with us what happened to your family, to your beloved mother that was a teacher.
Definitely, as I was describing, this act of this dehumanization, discrimination, the deprivation of basic human rights, actually was leading to final solution in 1994, where more than a million of Tutsi have been killed, slaughtered in only 100 days. On my experience, I lost my parents and I lost my 4 sisters. But when you talk about losing your family in African culture, it's not talking only your close families, also extended family, your aunties, your uncles, and your cousins. And I can count 8 members of my family have been wiped out and killed in 1994 genocide. So this was horrible, actually, surviving this horrible atrocities, horrible genocide in 1994. I think was really, and it always bring you a nightmare, and it's horrible time to survive as well. But at the same time, we had to resist and keep our resilience to the challenges of genocide as well.
Now it's obvious to us, Susan, when we look back, what this process was of using hateful and dangerous speech in all of these media outlets that we've just been learning about so eloquently. But just talk to us a little bit about the present, in terms of when does speech and ideas that are propagated, when do they constitute dangerous speech, and how do we balance the need for free speech versus understanding when there is dangerous speech that could result in violence, as we saw in Rwanda?
It's a critical question that arises, unfortunately, over and over, not only regarding the genocide in Rwanda, and not only in Rwanda. This question of when speech that is hateful becomes dangerous, in the sense in which I use the term dangerous speech, which is that that is speech or any form of human expression that inspires violence against another group of people. That question comes up over and over, for example, regarding powerful and influential people who incite violence, even though not genocide, such as my former president, Donald Trump. We saw an outbreak of violence on January 6th when his supporters stormed the United States Capitol building. That clearly was, that act was clearly incited by Trump and others. But here's the very important point, Stephen. Trump didn't incite that violence on January 6th itself, although he gave a speech on that day to the crowd that was gathered. Content is being understood. To continue with the example of Trump, although thankfully it is not related to genocide, it was certainly related to inciting violence. Already in early December, Trump tweeted an invitation to his supporters to come to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. He didn't say come and kill members of the American Congress. He didn't say come and smash your way into the Capitol building. Instead, he just used 4 words: it will be wild. It will be wild. That's not clearly incitement to violence. However, and this is the catch, the important point, on online fora, like one that was called the Donald, immediately Trump's supporters responded by saying, we have marching orders now. We will bring our weapons. He is calling for violence, although he can't say it explicitly. So I think that's a very important clue as to how to decide when content is dangerous. And very quickly, I'll say one more thing, which is that dangerous speech could also be called fear speech. When you're inciting people to violence, fear is at least as operative and important an emotion as hatred. It's when you convince people that they face a mortal threat at the hands of another group of people that they begin to condone or even commit unspeakable violence, since they see it, of course, as protecting themselves from being